What if you could change the way you feel simply by changing the way you think about situations in your life? In 1979, Dr. Richard Bandler and co-creator John Grinder developed the psychological system of neuro-linguistic programming. Based on their work, this video tutorial will help you to learn how to use your brain and literally change the way you think about your experience and your responses to them. Before we do that, during the following exercises, an important consideration is the direction in which you take your experiences. Generally speaking, we are looking to increase the good feelings and diminish the bad. With this in mind, I would like to draw your attention to the size, shape, brightness and distance of the images that you now see before you on the screen. These sub-elements of your visual representation are known as submodalities. A keen awareness of these submodalities as they relate to your own internal experiences will be the key in understanding how to use your own brain for a change. I'm sure there are times when you've had a pleasant experience, and if you can think of that situation now, notice your own unique submodalities associated with that image. Make a note of what you notice in having that good feeling experience and put them aside for later. These will be important in the exercises to follow. Going in the opposite direction, I want you to make the same observations, only this time with an experience you had that was unpleasant. This will only be for a short moment, just so that we can get down the basic information. Having noticed the size, shape, colour, distance and any other unique qualities of both your good and bad experiences, you are now ready to move on to the next step. When following these exercises, you will notice through the deliberate manipulation of the submodality elements, you will gain an experience of how to change your feelings in response to any situation. Bring to mind that good feeling experience by remembering it in the same way as you did before, only this time make the image brighter. Using the examples you see on the screen as a guide to how to do this, in your own mind's eye, make the images brighter and brighter as you notice the impact on the intensity of your feeling about that experience. Does it increase, decrease, or stay the same? Write down your observations. In the opposite direction, bring to mind the bad feeling image, remembering it in the same way as you did before. But this time, I want you to imagine that you have a dimmer switch and you're able to turn down the brightness very, very dim so that it becomes almost dark. Notice the impact on the intensity of that feeling. What happens to it? Again, write down your list of notes, not forgetting to put them aside for later. Bring to mind the good feeling example, resetting the brightness as you originally perceived it. Using the illustrations on the screen as examples of how to do this, reduce the distance of this image in relation to yourself. Notice the impact on the intensity of the feelings as you bring it closer and closer towards you. More importantly, notice the impact in relation to increasing or decreasing the brightness as before. Did it increase more or less or stay the same? Write down your observations and save them for later. Finding the drivers of your experience in this way will be the difference that makes the difference. Doing the opposite, take the bad feeling image and increase the distance between yourself and it. As it gets further and further away, notice how its impact on you begins to reduce or increase or stay the same. Notice what made the difference. List your observations. Okay, I think you're getting the picture now. Let's try this one for size. Bring to mind the good feeling experience, remembering it in exactly the same way as you first noticed it. Changing only the size of the image, make it bigger and bigger, and as you watch it increase in size, notice whether your feelings increase, decrease, or stay the same. Make a note and, more importantly, write down its impact in comparison to the other submodalities of brightness and distance that you tried earlier. Now let's reduce the size of the bad feeling image, remembering to keep all other elements the same as when you first thought of it. Notice what happens to the bad feeling as you shrink it down further and further until it becomes just a tiny speck on the horizon. Does it increase, decrease, or stay the same? By now, you will have a better idea of which of the submodality shifts works best in reducing the intensity of your bad feeling experience. Which one is it for you? Did size really matter? Okay, let's see if you can get through this exercise. Playing with the transparency of an image from totally clear to solid, experiment now with your own images and find out the impact they have on your experience. Notice the words you use to describe each experience. If in your bad experience you tell yourself things like, "I just can't see my way out of this," perhaps you need to change your images to a more transparent view. Conversely, if your good experience finds you telling yourself that you can't quite see it happening, then perhaps you need to make your images more solid. Experiment for yourself with these elements and write down the observations in comparison to the other submodalities. What can you determine about an increase in the good feeling experience or a decrease in the bad feeling experience by changing your images to either a bordered or panoramic view? Using the examples on the screen as a guide only, notice what changes you can make to your images in order to help you to increase or decrease both your good and bad experiences, respectively. An important distinction to make when thinking about any experience is whether or not you can see yourself in the image, dissociated, or through your own eyes as if you're really there, associated. Generally speaking, good feelings are best experienced in an associated way. Conversely, bad experiences are best experienced in a dissociated way so that you're not attached to it in any way. These are good for situations such as high anxiety, stress, sadness, or grief. Decide whether or not your images are represented to you in either a still frame slide or a moving image. Generally, a still image will have less impact on our neurology than a moving one. In each of your good and bad feeling experiences, do a mental swap, changing the perspective from a still frame to a moving one. Keeping all these elements the same, you may discover that making a change in whether it's still or moving may automatically trigger a change in another submodality, such as distance or size. Notice what happens and write down your observations as you see them. In regards to learning how to use your brain for a change, I'm sure you have realized that the content is largely irrelevant. You have been working with the structural elements of how you code your thinking in the visual representational system. Information processed through the kinesthetic and auditory representational systems will also have their own set of unique submodalities.
Be honest with me, does that make you now feel you believe that you can do it?
Do this simple exercise. Think of somebody that intimidated you and shrink them down to nothing. Notice how your feelings of intimidation diminish as you cut them down to size. Reduce the feelings further by giving them a clown's nose and Mickey Mouse ears. Check if when you think about them now, they still intimidate you. If not, you have done the exercise correctly. Now that you have had a chance to play with the tools of your brain, you are free to go out and experiment and discover for yourself how you too can use your brain for a change, such that the next time somebody asks you where you are going, you can confidently answer that you are going in the right direction.